Now, we have an interview with Stephan van Niekerk. Stephan is a former soldier in the British Army. He served in Afghanistan, where he was tragically injured by an explosive device. He is now a motivational speaker and resilience coach. He's also raised money in support of organisations that specialise in supporting people struggling with mental health issues and disabilities. Please welcome back to Studio A, Simon Ward, fellow producer and group CEO and the founder of ITG, interviewing Stephan. Over to you, Simon.
Welcome, Stephan. Thank you for joining us at this event today. It's already been a privilege to actually meet you. I want to get straight into it. You have an amazing story to tell. It's very inspirational, which is fantastic. Tell me your story? How have you got to where we're to this place today?
So, I decided I wanted to join the British Army because I wanted to make a difference in the world. I wanted to help people who can't necessarily help themselves. So, at the age of 21. In 2006, I joined a regiment called the Rifles, which is an infantry regiment in the British Army, and I had everything pretty much lined up. My whole future, my career, my hobbies, my interests, and everything was really going according to plan. I was living that dream until a single moment basically changed all of that. It was on my second tour of Afghanistan in 2009, and even though we cleared the ground to make it safe, there was unfortunately an explosive device that was still under the ground. And I sadly stepped on it, and suddenly, my whole world was just thrown upside down with this massive cloud of smoke and dust. And initially, I wasn't quite sure who set it off, but soon, as I came to realization, I realized actually it was me. So I looked down and realized both my legs were gone. My left leg's gone above the knee, my right leg below the knee, a few other bits and pieces. And the first thing then that hit me was that devastation of, I will not be able to do what I dreamt of doing, that I really wanted to do. I will not be able to help in the same way. That purpose, is gone. And, for good measure, I contracted pneumonia and swine flu, so somehow managed to pull through.
Just to add to it.
To add to it. And then started that recovery journey, which took me about 4.5 years to physically kind of recover from this. But during that time, it was the mental health side that really was the big challenge. I entered this cycle of change that everything changed. My purpose, my environment, relationships, the whole world pretty much changed. And on that cycle of change, and finding myself in this sort of danger zone where the severe mental health issues, the PTSDs, that kind of stuff. And in dealing with this, I learned a tremendous set of tools that then helped me kind of rebuild my life. And in rebuilding my life, started a family. I've got 4 children, started a business in the property industry, and then obviously started using everything that I've learned in order to help others. And I realized actually that dream of helping people doesn't have to finish. I can actually still do that, but on a completely different scale now, which is what brought us today, where we are today.
At what point did you realize that things were never going to be the same, and you had to go down a different path? Where were you in your cycle?
I was in this bit really the danger zone. It's basically the point where as most young men, most soldiers do, we don't often think that we need help. We think that we could deal with everything on our own, and I was very much in a position where I was just spiraling. I was probably at rock bottom for me. And something had to change, but it was reaching out and getting that support and starting to rebuild. That's when I kind of changed my viewpoint from looking at what I'd lost to actually what I can still do with what I have. I've still been blessed with a series of experiences, and and I've got enough to be able to do things. So let's use this.
Yeah, this is such a traumatic event. How do you find peace of mind? How do you reconcile this? How does this? How do you come to terms with such an event?
It's a brilliant question, actually. So I think first and foremost for me, it's about remembering why I did what I did. And while I was there doing my job, it made a difference. People had relative security. They were able to, they were able to earn money, put food on the table. Kids were able to play, and were able to play in the streets. So it's knowing that did make did have an impact. And there's a generation of people that kind of experience that way of living, and hopefully something would spark in them to want to experience that again. But on top of that, when things kind of get a bit much, it's support network, reaching out to people, talking about it, whether it's professional or close friends, family. Coping mechanisms, exercise. I quite like my cycling. I quite like a bit of writing, so I'm in the process of finishing off a book. And listen to music, just things that kind of get my blood pumping a little bit, get the endorphins going. But I also find that it's just focusing on things that I can control often is a good way to just bring me back to reality. And on top of that, also having a bit of faith, something that gives a bit of perspective, because it's bigger than myself, but also it comes with a bit of hope, and sometimes that just changes my mind a little bit.
You're a family man. How has it affected your family and friendships? Everything changed. Everything's different. How has that changed? In how do you work through that? It's changed a lot. Often the families will experience the same cycle than the person who's been injured or that suffered that traumatic change. And it's equally hard for them, because they, 1 minute you are one person and the next minute you're something completely different, and they have to also go through the fact that you've lost your purpose and their environment changes. It has a massive impact. And for my children, my kids were all born after I was injured, so for them they don't really know any different. But what they do notice is that I'm not quite able to do certain things, but I'm able to do things differently. But they also think it's pretty cool, because we're managing to kind of change what probably would have been seen as a limitation to actually being something that's quite inspiring to them, because we still manage to do most things just in a slightly different way. I mean, your story is inspiring, and it's an amazing thing that you're doing, and you're probably one of the most positive, optimistic people that I've met that's been through such a terrible experience. We're in a weird world, and there's lots of war, there's lots of conflict going on. How do you feel that we need to move forwards in that space in terms of humanity? How can we get to, what can we do?
Yeah, I think the fact that we are still having so many conflicts all over the place, I think it's tremendously sad. In some ways, as a species, we are so brilliant because we do such wonderful things, but at the same time, we also seem very, very uneducated in conflict resolution. The fact that we can't just sit down and negotiate a win-win for everybody without having to resort to conflict, it just baffles me sometimes. So it shows that we still have a long way to evolve. Education would definitely help with this. And sort of moving away from the fact that conflict is a quick resort to solve a problem. It really isn't. And I just find it tremendously sad that that we still live in a world where we have so much conflict, and it's not just the people living through it, but if you look at like Ukraine, for example, the destruction, that's going to be felt for generations to come. They're going to have to live with the scars of that, and that's really sad. But also I think what I find quite disturbing is the poverty, and how that also creates violence and mindless murdering, where people feel the need to take up arms to prey on other people. So I kind of hope that with each generation that passes, that people slowly become fed up with war, which will hopefully force that change in thinking in going forward, that we can find alternative solutions.
Are we moving forward?
I'm always optimistic. I think that we are. Everybody just wants to live in peace. The people that I've spoken with in various different countries, they've been through war themselves, everybody just wants to live in peace. They just want to raise their kids, and they just want to get on. And I think that as time goes on, people are finding their voice, as we've seen as a few examples around the world where, women have stood up and they've sort of spoken out against, the Taliban and so on. So I find that people slowly are finding their voice. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
You're optimistic
yes.
Think that people are listening now.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, events like this help bring it to the world stage, which is also fantastic. Having spent a little bit of time with you, where do you find your passion and your drive? How do you keep going? Where does it come from? It comes from the need to contribute. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me, and also the fact that I'm a firm believer that in society, if we all share what we've learned, the whole society will prosper as a result. So
I've been through such a traumatic experience. It's completely changed my life, and I've learned a lot of things along the way in order to turn things around. And I think it would be a shame if I just wasted it. So I kind of feel that it's my duty to stand up and actually use that, because change is everywhere. You know, it's whether people want it or not want it, expected, unexpected, and often we're not equipped to deal with it. So I've learned something, and I can share it with those people. So if I can make a difference to them, and that's good.
It's made you a different person. Has it made you a better person? Has it made you how has it changed you in your outlook of, you know, in life?
I think it's definitely given me a different perspective, that, you know, there is a bigger picture, that there are ways that we can reach people and ways that we can help different. You know, as a soldier I could make a difference, yes, but it was, I think, compared to what I can do now, it was very different. So but also it changed my perspective on what's important in life. So I'd definitely say it's changed my perspective.
Do you feel a better person for it? Do you feel you have a better purpose now?
Definitely so. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And that's driving forward, which is amazing. The one particular thing that we do want to spend a few minutes talking about are organisations for individuals for support, and some of the amazing things you're doing. I know that you're doing some great stuff. So let's shamelessly tell people, where would you go? How can they tell us about what you're doing in the world of trying to raise awareness, and where can people go to support?
So at the moment, I'm involved with a charity called the Adaptive Grand Slam, and the whole focus of the Adaptive Grand Slam is to help people with disabilities and mental health challenges to get into activities, you know, whether it's water sports, cycling, you know, some skiing related stuff, mountaineering, but it's basically trying to inspire them to get out there and do something, so they can realise that, you know, it's like whatever their situation is not the end of the world. There's a life beyond that, and with the right support and the right equipment you can do so. So we are silly enough to send a group of disabled people, myself included, to cycle a 2,750 mile off-road mountain biking route, starting in Banff in Canada, finishing at the border of Mexico via the Rocky Mountains. So it's we're summiting Everest 7 times, and it's going to take us about 50 days.
That's as difficult a journey as you could possibly do.
Yes. So we're doing this next year, and in so setting a world first as well, and being the first disabled people to complete this route. And we're obviously raising money for the Adaptive Grand Slam that we can use towards these activities. Basically, the idea is that beneficiaries don't have to put their hands in their pocket. That is all funded for them, so they just can experience the joys of.
And how did that come about? How did your, this whole the event come about?
So I met the founder, Martin Hewitt, who's done some crazy things himself. He's set an Explorers Grand Slam, so climbing the 7 tallest mountains on the 7 continents. So he's got one more to go. He's climbed Everest, he's crossed the South Pole, the North Pole, you name it. He's done quite a lot of things, and I really wanted to do the cycle route. I didn't quite know how to do it on my own. I just got talking to Martin, and we just started putting our brains together, and he was crazy enough to take me up on it.
I can imagine, and I can imagine it's going to be a very difficult thing to do for you, but I've no doubt that your passion will just drive you through this whole process to actually get through it. That's the alarm bells going off in the background, so we don't need to worry about that. If we could say one thing, or if you could say one thing that would inspire young people to, no matter what they've been through, to keep going, what would it be?
I think the one thing will be, don't do it alone. It's hard to admit that you need help, and it's hard to get help, but trust me, it's probably the best thing you can do is just to reach out and share the load with somebody close to you, somebody you trust, because by the time when you start doing that, the world changes. What changed the world for me, just by admitting it and asking for help. And
as you came through your journey, was that support there? Were the networks there, or was it early in the process, or how did it work for you?
The mental health side was still relatively early in the process, I'd say. It was, but they soon learned, and there are a lot of good charities out there that helped with this. So it was, as time went on, there was a lot more focus on the mental health side. So it definitely became a lot easier to get the support.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine the mental health side is as difficult as the physical side of it. Actually, it mustn't really shake you up so much. And getting that mental health support is just talking. Is it? How is it based? Where do you find that inspiration to do that?
It was, I think for me, I learned that the hard way. If somebody could speak to me and tell me the things that I learn now, I probably would have done it a lot sooner. But for me, I sadly waited until breaking point for me to realise actually I need to get some help. You know, I can't carry on like this. And so
was that help given, or did you go and find it?
It was, so I had my support network there, but I had to find it. We had to reach out to find it, and at the time, you know, it was very hard. You know, it was there, but it's hard to actually ask for help.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Now, look, we're coming right to sort of the end of our program now, so it's been a little bit short. How do we get in touch with you? How do people speak to you? How can we contact you?
So I'm on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
Stephan van Niekerk. So I hope there's a link on the website.
There
My
will be a link
surname's
on
a
the
bit of a
website.
funny one. I'm also on Instagram, The Diary of a Limitless Dad, and I've also got my website at stephanvn.com.
Stephan, it's one of the most inspirational things I've ever met, and you're one of the most optimistic people I've ever met. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great to
Thank
meet you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. Back over to you, Joe.